The regular season has ended, and Pharmaceutical Soccer is here to talk about Nashville SC and the impending push for that elusive domestic cup double. This is Pharma Soccer. Clay Trainum joined by Valair Shabilla after an absolutely demoralizing 5-2 loss for Nashville SC against Inter Miami, and we're going to talk about that, and we'll get into it a little bit later. We will also get into the absence of one Stephen Robinson, who is not on the show today. Longtime listeners might be able to figure out why Stephen is not on the show. He had a real bad weekend, as you may suppose. So we will get to that a little bit later in the show. But for now, there's only one appropriate question that we can ask on this show, and that is, Valair, how was your weekend?
I'm exhausted. It was pretty, things came out of it that were good. I don't want to say like it was a bad weekend. It was just terrible for me physically because I was in San Diego until Thursday, which I was supposed to land in Nashville around midnight. Ended up landing in Nashville around 2:12, I think, a.m. Uh, so that was not fun. And then once I finally got home, this is Friday morning now. I also started getting sick around Wednesday night while I was still in San Diego enjoying some time with my family, which beautiful city, great people. Obviously, I have a lot of family there, so I got to enjoy that part. But then got sick then. I don't know if you can still hear it in my voice a little bit. Um, yeah, and then after getting like maybe 4 hours of terrible sleep because I was sick, I had to go and do a very, very special episode of On Air with Valair with Taylor Washington, which was really cool. Again, good things came out of this weekend, but I didn't feel good at any point in the weekend. And then Saturday was the match, obviously, but I still didn't feel great. And Sunday, I tried to rest and all that, but still just this, I don't know if it's a virus or something, but it doesn't feel great. We're starting to feel a little better today, so I'm hoping this stays around. I'm gonna get back to my routine and everything, so hoping everything gets back to normal. But yeah, it was a difficult weekend for me physically. How about you, Clay?
It was a pretty good weekend. It was also very tiring on my end. We went to go see The Outsiders, the Broadway show, last Thursday, which was great and tremendously depressing, almost as depressing as losing 5-2 in a game you had a lead in. And then did get to watch the Dodgers go back to the World Series. As everyone knows, this is a huge Major League Baseball podcast, in addition to being a Big Ten podcast. And in that light, shout out to the Indiana Hoosiers, the number 2 team in the country. Blair really cares about this fact.
Mm-hmm.
And, we did our civic, duty, maybe, perhaps, on Saturday. So I had a full day Saturday, did some volleyball down here, and went to the game, did some smoked wings again, very good, on Sunday, but had a very relaxing Sunday to think about whether or not I am excited or terrified of watching Nashville in the MLS Cup playoffs.
Imagine leaving that game at halftime and just thinking Nashville is like the best team in MLS, and, and seeing the final result.
uh, but before, so it's interesting. We're going to start on a maybe bittersweet note first, because you mentioned your On Air with Valair episode, which everyone keep your eyes out for that. But like, it's an interesting thought, you're sitting there at the Nashville SC game, and let's be honest, there's a lot of people there, wearing pink that are there for Messi and that have hopped on board, Miami so they can watch Messi and all this stuff. And I don't necessarily have a disdain for that. I'm very much of the opinion of however you get on this MLS train, as long as you stick around, I think that that's awesome, and that it's a more fun league when there are more fans. And so while acknowledging that part of it, it was kind of an interesting dichotomy to start off the match, or right before the match, celebrating someone who's been with Nashville SC since the USL days. which, that's not a significant portion of Nashville SC's fan base. Like, not a ton of people were at those USL games in comparison to the people that are at some of these big MLS matches. But it was like, it did make for an interesting sort of point of reference, because I remember going down to Miami games before Messi was there, and the crowds probably rivaled the crowds that watched Taylor Washington play in some of those games at First Tennessee Park. So uh, we obviously have a lot of love for Taylor Washington on this show. Someone who's been around for 8 years, played in 7 different competitions for Nashville SC. Someone who's been very kind to this show, specifically, not just us individually, but he was our first guest from NSC to be on this show. So, like, uh, an unbelievable servant to the club. And I don't just mean that on the pitch. Of course, you can't talk about Taylor Washington without talking about all the work that he does in the community. It's been recognized by the league. It's certainly been recognized by Nashville SC several years in a row with their humanitarian award. And I don't know that they'll ever have a player as good off the pitch as Taylor has been for the Nashville community.
Yeah, I mean, I think the off the pitch stuff speaks for itself, and I know you mentioned not many people were there in USL compared to what MLS is right now, but that's kind of the interesting part for me because everybody was cheering for Taylor, and I think him keeping up his sort of true mission off the pitch during those MLS years kind of gained him those fans as well. And I do want to point out something because we kind of get carried away with this community stuff, which is very important, even more important than on the pitch
Yeah.
stuff.
You're going
But
to say what
BJ
BJ said,
Callahan,
aren't you?
yeah, BJ
Yeah.
Callahan made it a point to mention on Thursday or on Friday, sorry, that Taylor Washington is a good soccer player as well, and I think there you don't earn MLS contracts based on your work with the community. That just doesn't happen. And especially somebody who's so cutthroat like Mike Jacobs. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing about Mike Jacobs. That's what you need in the business. That's what the business is. He doesn't hand out MLS contracts. And if you look at the folks who made it with Taylor out of that USL team into MLS contracts, first of all, very few to start with, and not just for Nashville, just overall. And second of all, it wasn't like they didn't last as long. And that wasn't just because Taylor was out there helping the community. I'm sure that helped, and I'm sure, he feels great satisfaction with that, and the community feels love for him because of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also had to do with what he did on the pitch. And if you go back and look at those stats this year aside, because obviously he got hurt, he was a really, really good player to come in and do his part when needed.
I don't think you put this year aside. I think you talk about this year specifically, because where is one of the positions that Nashville got itself into quite a bit of hot water a few months ago, and that's when
Mhm.
Dan Lovitz got hurt, and there wasn't really a Taylor Washington to step into that role, and you end up playing a right back at left back
Right.
and things like that. So, like, it, it's evident in this season, and in his absence, and I do appreciate that. I'm kind of mad at myself for not bringing it up whenever I was introing that bit, because I think it's important to look at the type of players that have gone up from USL to MLS, like USL MVPs, and not found a spot for themselves in the league.
Right.
I mean, you look at a Cameron Lancaster who played for Nashville SC. That's one of the all-time leading scorers in the history of the USL. Couldn't figure things out in MLS, and so, like, you see that all over the place. So Taylor Washington finding a way to not just be a contributor, but I mean, he's been a starter for chunks of his MLS career. Is something that is notable, and BJ, of course, having a long relationship dating back to Taylor being a teenager. I very much appreciate that he wanted to make time to highlight the fact that he's not just like an unbelievable community member in Nashville, but a real asset to the squad.
And more on that on we're hoping for our Friday release for this special episode again of On Air with Valair. Would love everybody to tune in and share it. It got a little emotional at times, as you would imagine. But we talked about some fun stuff too, and we had some funny moments, and we talked everything from high school soccer to to professional ranks and non soccer stuff as well. So I hope you enjoy the show, and just make sure to tune into it when we do release it. But also keep listening to this show because there's so much more fun stuff coming up here.
Yes, and so we're gonna get to the game. We're gonna talk about the game and all of the enjoyment of that. But let's, you know, the playoffs are starting. Nashville's in the playoffs. That's a big check mark. In addition to winning a trophy this year, Nashville is back in the playoffs after missing it last year. What do we think the vibe check is at the moment? I would say at halftime it was quite high. After the game, it felt a little more mixed.
I think it was really, really flat. Uh, the vibes were not vibing at the end of the game, and it's I don't know if there's room to kind of bring the vibes back for the Saturday match that is at home for the playoffs, which is currently the most important thing, right? It's that Friday match in Miami, but I do think even more important than that is that Saturday match back at Geodis Park. Because look, you're not gonna match Miami quality wise. You're just not going to. They have the better quality team. You are gonna match Miami in certain things. One of those is the atmosphere at Geodis Park and making it feel like they are playing away from home and focusing on that vibe and focusing on that discomfort. And I thought Nashville were doing pretty good with that overall. But I will say, even in the first half, out of all the times Messi has played in Nashville, this was the most Miami fans I saw, I think, in the stadium. Looking at it from this is very subjective. They were the most vocal Miami fans I thought I saw throughout all these games, and I think there's a reason for that. I think that reason is probably because season ticket holders have seen Messi play a couple times and said, you know what, I'll pay for my season tickets by selling this one ticket this season. And I don't blame anybody for doing that because money is hard to get. So I get it. However, I think that did contribute to the atmosphere overall, even when Nashville were the team on top. And that's not saying that the Nashville fans didn't show up. I'm just saying it didn't feel like the Leagues Cup final or even the last time Messi came to town, where I felt like, yes, they were Miami fans, but the Nashville fans were outnumbered them by a huge, huge amount. And again, this is subjective. This is just what I saw when I was there, so I don't have numbers on that, and we would never have numbers on that because they don't. MLS doesn't police that like other leagues. So all that said, um, the vibes were pretty low, and I think what would need to happen is a really, really good performance or a result in Miami on Friday to kind of bring back Saturday's vibes. And I'm hoping because, I think Miami and Messi need to feel the away game experience. I'm hoping that whoever sold their tickets for that decision day match is planning to show up on the playoffs match because it's a more important occasion and you already kind of sold a ticket, so now you can attend this one. That's, you know, I mean, that's the way I look
Yeah,
at it.
yeah, and we'll talk playoffs and the format and stuff later because I'm sure Valair and I kind of agree on some things about it. But yeah, it was just I've talked to a lot of people that they've kind of tuned out the last couple weeks, which is understandable. I mean, you're in the playoffs. There was still some stuff on the line going into this game, but like you've already seen the team win a trophy. And so it's like sort of a natural like letting off. It's football season, you're at the end of the season, and it's kind of hard to recapture the sort of excitement of a cup run when it's not started yet. And so I've definitely sensed that. I did appreciate that even after a 5-2 loss on the concourse the other night, they did actually end up getting the drums going for a bit and things like that. Which the real part that's kind of a bummer that undercuts all of it is that you had a chance to celebrate the Open Cup winning team in the stadium, which
Hmm.
hadn't happened yet. And if it's a win there, suddenly it turns into not just a win against Miami, but it's like a really joyous occasion because this is the first time people have seen the team on the pitch since that game, and you kind of lost that. I don't even think Hani was over there for the anthem at the end, so like um, it was just a real downer. And they kind of got back into it on the concourse. The handful of people that were still around decided to have a good time to celebrate being in the playoffs, which you can't lose sight of. And that's the one thing I keep coming back to is like they have accomplished the two main goals that I think most people set up for them this year, which was win a trophy. They won the Open Cup and make the playoffs. Like no matter what happens, those two things happen this year, and those are both the main objectives of the entire season. And so I think that's worth keeping in mind. But I do think like there are some reasons to fancy Nashville's chances in a playoff situation, and we'll get into the playoff preview here in a little bit.
And just on that, I think the fact that last season was so terrible really highlight how good this season is. I think what you know we talk about Gary Smith and his Nashville teams and all of that, and it seemed like year after year there wasn't a sort of step forward. Even if there wasn't a step back, there wasn't a step forward in a lot of those years. And I think what you look at here is a clear and very, very obvious step forward because in any other season, if Nashville put on these performances in any other season, first of all, they will be definitely in top four. They'll probably be contending for the Supporters Shield longer than they did, and they'll probably have the home. Sam Sturridge will probably win Golden Boot. Hani Mukhtar will probably be going for MVP, and BJ Callahan will probably be a shoe-in for Coach of the Year. But this year, you look at the East, and it's not an excuse. It's just what's happening. It's an
Buzzsaw.
insane conference this year. I've never seen anything like this before. So Orlando finished in the historical high MLS points for them, and they are ninth. They have to go away for the play-in game. So like it's just a crazy season, and Nashville being able to be where they are is nothing short of an achievement for this club. So yeah, whatever happens in the playoffs happens. Like Clay said, I think it's a successful season. I don't think the players are saying that, and I really don't think
No,
BJ Callahan is saying that at all.
no. They may say that in a few months, but they aren't saying it
Right.
right now. And so we will talk more playoffs here in a couple segments. But first off, we do want to make sure that you guys go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is, leave a review. If you go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, we will read that review right here. We have not gotten one in a while, so we do want you to go leave a 5-star review. Make fun of Steven. Like, tell us where Steven is. We have an idea where Steven is, and we'll get to that. But tell us or put in your resume to take over Steven's spot. There's an opening, Taylor Washington. Maybe he wants to be on. like, maybe he wants to take over Steven's spot. We can get to that. We'll read it. We do have a couple of comments that came in on our Spotify page, and we like to try and keep up with those. Valair, who missed last week, was very thrown off by seeing the comments show up.
I was out on vacation. I just got an email saying you have 2 comments on your episode, and I'm like, what did they say? I was like, I didn't even see the comments. I was just like, oh my god, what happened? But it was good. It was fine, I guess.
So Sam Watts 21, he was voicing his displeasure. I put with FIFA on the rundown, but it's not with FIFA. It's with EAFC,
Right.
which I'm sure I don't play that, but I'm sure that both Stephen and Valair agree.
I played last night, and I also voiced my displeasure with the AFC.
And then Alex William, when he did his Big Ten check in, and he said, "Go IU," I think is what he said. Uh,
I don't think he said that. I don't think he said that.
he said he said boiler up. So shout out to the Purdue Boilermakers. Hopefully they lose 66-0 to Indiana
What
again this year.
what school is that? Sorry, I'm actually asking.
Oh, it's Purdue,
Purdue. Okay, cool.
or as I called them whenever I was in middle school, Purdue.
Wow.
So
Yeah, you were really popular in middle school, huh?
I'm from Southern Indiana, of course I was. So anyway, with that being said, we're actually going to talk about soccer here in a few minutes. We will be back with the second segment here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. Welcome back to Pharmaceutical Soccer. Trainum. I'm joined with Valair Shabilla. Steven is out once again, as per usual. And I guess it's time to talk about the game. It was a game that happened, a 5-2 loss for Nashville against Inter Miami, Messi and friends, if you will. And, you know, I, I was going to start this. I have this written down differently in the rundown, but I do think that there are two sort of fulcrum moments of the game that I think affected the way everything played out. And, the conspiracy theorists out there would probably have had a field day with both of them. But I think that there were probably two 50-50 refereeing decisions that we've seen go one way or the other multiple times over the course of a given year. The first was in the first half. There was a challenge on Jack Mayer where he basically got stuck in the ribs. It's completely inadvertent. It's just a reckless challenge. Seen it given red, seen it given yellow. Um, Certainly seen it given red more than I've seen it given yellow, but it wasn't necessarily something we haven't seen before. And then there was just a really unfortunate handball call with Nashville up 2-1 in the second half, and both of them go Miami's way. I don't necessarily think that that's like some conspiracy. I do know that John Freeman doesn't have a particularly great history with Nashville SC, but I don't think it's because he hates Nashville SC. I think it's because he's not the best referee in the world. So I don't think it's an intentional miscalling of the game by any means, but two major moments in the game, and I think that obviously an early red card changes everything, but I think that Nashville really turning off after that penalty, I think it kind of got in their heads. I'm not sure if you feel the same way.
I think that's a fair way to look at it. I do want to go back to the red card or the incident that could have been a red card. And yes, I have seen both given in the past. I think one thing that didn't help uh, the perception of it is that Jack Mayer was bending down to hit the ball. And that always is going to make it look worse, but at the same time, the referee, when they're reviewing it, they're gonna look at that. So if Jack Mayer doesn't bend down and goes forward with his foot or with his leg as well, then it's a clash of two legs, and maybe there's a foul, maybe there isn't a foul, and everybody moves on. But Jack Mayer decides to go to head the ball, which is within his right to do that. But he is putting himself in that position by doing that. Um, what you have seen given as a red in that instance is usually because of the effects after the fact. So if Jack Mayer gets up and there's nothing wrong with him and he's not bleeding, generally that's a yellow and everybody moves on. And what usually happens is that people or referees see the reaction of the player, and because it was more harsh or more reckless, I guess, then they give the red card. I didn't have a huge issue with it not being a red card. At the same time, I could totally see it being a red card, if that makes sense. And I think I tweeted at the time, but like I honestly just didn't know what the right punishment was. So I can't be mad at it because I didn't know what the right punishment was. I do understand that the referee needs to know what the right punishment is. So I'll just always go to the expert there, even if the expert is John Freeman, who we've had issues with, I guess, on this show before. The
I think
second
everyone
thing,
has
the
had
second
issues with John Freeman since 2018.
2018, yeah. The second thing is the penalty, which going back to Clay's point, it's a penalty in every way possible. It's a very unfortunate penalty. I just don't see how you can't th- like there's no way he doesn't give that and then like is not criticized to an nth degree for not giving it. It's a very unfortunate penalty, and I think it does touch Andy Nahart's thigh a little bit before it touches his arm, but the last touch before his arm was from a Miami player, which again is very unfortunate, but that's what happened. I think there was a similar one against Walker. I want to say no, not Charlotte. Cincinnati game at home earlier this season. I think there was a similar penalty called around the 90th minute against Walker. Again, that ball wasn't going anywhere. It's not like that ball was going into the goal or near, for an easy finish, but it's a penalty. And that's if it was on the other end, all the Nashville fans would be calling for a penalty. And that's just the truth of the matter. that fair? I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean,
Like, it's just
unfortunately, I watch the Premier League, so I have no idea what is and isn't a penalty on a given day. So, like, I've certainly seen that not given as a penalty, you know, dozens of times in my life. But I do think the more important part of it, and this is the part that Nashville has to figure out, is you get there's two major calls essentially that affect the way the game plays out. And I think that with the penalty specifically, Nashville did not respond well to it. And it kind of exacerbated already a kind of ho hum second half to begin with. And they checked off right after that. Then now it's 3-2 real quickly after being up 2-1. And from there on, it was off to the races. Miami probably could have scored it. I mean, Nashville, to be fair, we'll talk about the first half in a few minutes, but like Miami probably could have scored one or two other ones too because they missed some big ones down the stretch as well.
Yeah, I think for Nashville after that, even before that penalty, I mean, going into the second half, there was clear sort of determination from Miami that just was not matched with Nashville. And you can look at stats, you can look at all that, but you just look at the field, look at the way the game played out. I'm not a huge intangibles guy, but if if you just go in and see what Messi and I'm gonna go back to Messi because he's the greatest player of all time. But also, I know we make a point to not talk about him, especially in most MLS shows, because people are tired of him. But if you see his determination after that second half and the way he carried that team on his back, it's truly something like extraordinary. And because of the way he played, he made everybody around him better, and he made everybody around him wants to run more and play better. And we've said that about Hani Mukhtar before. We've said that about a lot of great players before. But Messi being able to turn that on and then having Nashville SC not respond to that, that's eventually what led to this second half. And I know the goal didn't come till what, the 63rd minute, the penalty. But even
Yeah,
before that, Nashville were nowhere near to start that second half. And by the time they finally woke up, it was a little too late, too little too late. Because like you said, they were 3-2 down at home all of a sudden with a Messi who is chasing the historic record for MLS and seemingly doesn't want to stop scoring at any point. So I think I think for Nashville, one thing to keep in mind, and I don't know if this was, we have to give some credit to Miami, like I just did with Messi. We have to give some credit to Mascherano, who did change things at halftime. But at the end of the day, because they were playing at home, because this is a Nashville show, we're going to look at Nashville more so than we're going to look at Miami. And for Nashville, switching off for the first 10, 15 minutes of the half, it's just not gonna cut it against this Miami team. It's just not going to cut it.
yeah. You'd rather learn those lessons the last day of the season as opposed to the first game of the playoffs.
Right.
And I do want to take it back. Like let's get more on the positive side here for Nashville because I do think that the first half might have been the best half that Nashville's played this season, which is something we've said fairly often. Uh, over the course of the year, they've had some really good halves. Now, here's the other side of that: is that often when we're talking about a very good half for Nashville SC, we're talking about a lot of missed chances, which is that Nashville on a different day could have buried Miami in the first half. Like it really could have happened. And you give up a goal to Messi that's kind of similar to the goal that Messi scored in the League's Cup final in Nashville. After Hani has possibly his worst miss of his career in Nashville, maybe a minute before then, uh, I think Sam Surridge hit the post. There were a few other chances where Nashville got in space. I'm not sure what the XG was for that first half, but it was probably better than a lot of games
Yeah.
that
So
Nashville
at,
has had
at
this.
halftime, at halftime, Fatma, which I think gets it from Opta, had it at 3.2. But now I'm looking at it and it's down back to 3 for the entire game. So I don't know if there was something there, but still, your point very much stands. Nashville should have been
Yeah,
up for
FOTMob
more.
runs high during games. I've noticed,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was a very very good half. I'm sure Honey is still thinking about that miss that he had in the first half, but perhaps most importantly, in terms of like a way that Nashville performed in the half, is that they got 2 goals right before the break to take the lead. After surrendering a worldie to Messi, they kept it going. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and they got their goals. And win to half, a goal to the good.
Yeah, I think the what this stems from is the idea of like banking on yourself and being able to say you're a good enough team to go toe to toe with Miami in attack and push them, really make them uncomfortable in their own box and in their own half in general. Nashville were pressing like pretty much the most I've seen them press this entire season was against Miami. They knew the weak areas were in Miami's defense, and they pushed those weak areas to start with. That did leave them vulnerable at the other end, and which eventually caused Messi's goal or a couple other sort of scary moments. But essentially, what Nashville were saying is that you're going to concede a goal or two from Messi regardless. So you might as well go and get your goals early on and let Messi score the goals and just call it a day. Obviously, you're not letting him, but it's a figure of speech. But the thing that kind of backfired was Nashville not finishing those chances, right? Because if Nashville goes into the second half 4-1 up, which isn't crazy to say, like that was a
The way
very
it
much
played
a
out,
possibility.
yeah.
Yeah, like it was real. If they go up 4-1 and Messi comes in with the same determination I was talking about and they score those 2 quick goals, you're still looking at being ahead in that game, even after them scoring 2 goals. So that changes everything in the game. And I think that pretty much Nashville's mentality going into the second half was to maybe hold off Miami a little bit, and that just backfired as well. And I'm not a head coach, and I'm not a professional by any means, so maybe I don't understand this, but to me, it just seems like if you just go gun ho, tit for tat against Miami, let just bank on your attackers to score, and pretty much hope your defenders can do a good job at the other side. It's a better strategy, I think, to me, than sitting back and trying to hold Messi because it's just not going to happen. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's too simplistic to look at it, but that's just the way I'm looking at it for this. I know we're talking about the playoffs in a second. It just seemed like a better plan for Messi because, yes, you are vulnerable at the back, but A, you scored 2 goals and you could have scored 2 others easily.
All I'll say is that, if the game's going to turn into a track meet, Messi might be the best sprinter out there, but
Yeah.
he's going to be going up against several other people. And I would very much back Nashville getting up and down as much as I would Miami. And so, like, if it's going to be that, yeah, you got to take your risks. I mean, ultimately, that's what it is. Miami is on talent, the most talented team that's out there. The one thing that you can press is that you have multiple guys who can score 20 goals in a season. And Miami sort of does, but one of them only has like 1.5 legs. So like you see what you can do, but it's easy to say now, of course, after watching the way the last game played out. But there will be plenty of other chances for hopefully for Nashville to figure something out. They will play 3 games potentially against Miami, and we'll talk about that more in the next segment. But I think ultimately the reason that Nashville fans should be excited is that Nashville just did well in a knockout tournament, and they're now entering another knockout tournament. They are playing Miami, which Miami's record in knockout tournaments in MLS is mixed at best. I mean, they did well with Leagues Cup, of course. They've been knocked out of MLS Cup before. They've been knocked out of Open Cup. It is something that has happened. So I do think there's reasons to think that Nashville can find a way to get wins.
And goal difference doesn't count in this
Yeah.
tournament, right? This playoffs, because if it ties, it goes to penalties, and there will be a winner.
Mhm.
So back to my advice, just go for it. If you lose four
Yeah.
two, and if you lose 3-2, and if you lose 5-2, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Maybe morale would be different, but I don't know, man. Unless you get like completely blown out, you still have a shot the next game.
I think I think maybe the second half was like, you know, A little bit of a trick, make Miami feel overconfident going into hosting Nashville. And then Nashville goes in there and
I
smacks them.
I tried to do that playing pool one time, and it really backfired. Like, I didn't win either games. So, I
You try to do the Uncle Phil.
so yeah,
Yeah.
don't try to hustle people, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk about the playoffs. We'll talk about the MLS Next Pro playoffs and everything coming up here in the next week for Nashville SC. We'll be back with our third and final segment right after this. And welcome back to Pharma Soccer. Clay Trainum joined with Valair Shabilla. We are not joined by Stephen Robinson. And that is because the third segment is the make Steven feel bad segment. And so the way that we're going to make Steven feel bad is we're going to start with prop bets.
Oh,
We are going to award our prop bets winner for the year right here in this segment.
I forgot to check. No.
And
It's you, isn't
so
it? I know it's
I
you.
have, well, no. Uh, so I have the prop bet standings for the year. There is actually a little bit of controversy here.
Mm.
Unfortunately, the winner has been locked up for several months at this point, and hopefully he'll be able to give a speech if he's on the show. And if not, he won't be able to bring it up at all because it's already happened. And so the winner of this year's prop bets, after betting $91 on Nashville SC's first loss being Red Bull New York, is Stephen Robinson.
I know it.
So
I know it.
congrats to Stephen. Stephen, Mike is yours.
Very
All
good.
right, cool. So good. Now, second place is where things get interesting.
Okay, Clay, before you go to second place, can we agree to not mention this to Steven and see if he listens? Because I bet he doesn't listen to this show. So
I
we
know.
never bring it up. He will have to bring it up. Okay? And
Yeah,
listeners,
and
don't
then
bring
we'll
it up
just
to
be
Steven.
like, we already talked about this. I don't
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
we're doing. We talked about this ages ago. So second place is where it gets interesting because Valair, I'm sorry to tell you, you finished second to last. Omari finished last.
It's all right. I
Omari
won 3
got
years in a
exactly
row.
0 of his bets right. What?
I won 3 years in a row. It is what it is. 4 years in a
Yeah,
row?
Omari gets the Stephen Robinson Memorial last place wooden spoon trophy. Valair, you did get 2 bets right. You got the first hat trick being Sam Surridge and Red Bulls away as the first loss. That's 30 points. 30 points could win this. $30 could win this sometimes, but it doesn't win it this year. So, this is the Eastern Conference of prop bets.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is what it is. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So it's between me and Joel for second place. And it's going to take some adjudication here. So I'm
Okay.
going to leave it to you. So I got 3 right, which was first hat trick, leading goal contributor for the season, not named Hani Mukhtar, which of course was Sam Surridge, and the first loss being New York. That was 3 bets right, $48 won. Now, Joel had the exact same 3 right, but the final question was first to do a pregnant goal celebration. Now, he said Jacob Schaffelberg, and he put $5 on it. But Jacob Schaffelberg did a newborn celebration because he rocked the cradle. So here's where it gets interesting. If we count that as a pregnant goal celebration, then Joel finishes first or finishes above me
Second.
with
Yeah.
50 points. If we say, all right, it's half credit, because I do feel like he gets some credit for having the right person, Schaffelberg. He gets 2.5 points, which puts him at 47.5 points, a half point off of me for second.
That's crazy, first of all. What is the exact wording on the question?
It says pregnant goal celebration.
I think that includes the cradle, though. I know
I
what you
don't
mean. I know what you mean.
that's what I'm saying. I don't think you can
Yeah.
say he
But
didn't get
if
it
you tell
right. I
me
don't
to
know that
list
it counts for full.
if you tell me to list all the pregnant celebrations, I would list the cradle, I would list the little
See,
ball.
here's where I disagree. The thumb is one. The ball is what we were talking about. The cradle is post pregnancy. So
I understand, but I feel like players would do it even. There's a really good show called Football Cliches, and I am sure they've covered this, and I've listened to it, but I don't remember what was their sort of final decision on this.
hey,
Uh, I might reach
I'm
out.
fine.
I might reach out.
I'm fine with your adjudication on this. I really am. But it is funnier if it's 2.5 points instead of five, and then I win by a half point, or I win by 50 cents essentially.
You know what? Let's take this to next week and get it on the Discord or something, and see what folks
But
have
then
to
we have to
say.
talk about. But then we have to talk about prop bets, and Steven knows what we awarded prop bets.
Okay. Okay. We'll just take it to like Ben and a couple others. How about that? There you go.
Yeah,
Let them
yeah,
decide. Yeah, yeah. Too much pressure
yeah.
on me.
And then whenever it
I fall under pressure. Clearly.
well, just for the record, in our own internal bookkeeping, I have it in yellow instead of in
Okay.
in
Okay.
green or red. So we'll leave it up there. But that is the prop bets. Congratulations, Stephen. If you bring this up, Stephen, if you bring this up out of the blue and we don't bring it up, you are forfeiting your prop bets win for the year. Just know
Mm.
that. And if you're mad about that ruling, you should have listened to the show, Stephen. So, anyway, moving on because this is a just completely dunk on Steven show. Let's talk about the MLS Next Pro playoffs.
So Huntsville, they won their game. They upset Chattanooga FC in Chattanooga on Sunday night, 2-0, and dominant win for the boys in blue, who were wearing orange.
And orange.
Yes, but yeah,
Rocket
no, really
Boys.
good win for Chattanooga. Now going on to the next round. Again, I would like to remind everybody that in MLS Next Pro, you choose your opponent if you're a higher seed. So there is a possibility that they will host a playoff match if Chicago wins the next round and um, the top team chooses the second team to go for some reason. I don't know if that's going to happen. There's a lot going on, so we'll have to wait and see. But nonetheless, this is their first ever playoff win. This is their first ever playoff match in club history. So it's really cool to see Christian Coffey and Mayaka were the two goal scorers
Mayorkas.
for Chattanooga, not for Chattanooga, for Huntsville, against Stevens Chattanooga, who he loves and adores, being a Chattanooga. Is it hooligan? What do they call it? What do they call them? Chattahooligans?
Chattahooligan.
Yeah.
He only cheers for teams that are CFC.
Yeah, CFC, big CFC guy, blue CFC. You can tell from his Chelsea and Chattanooga love. But yeah, really big historic event for Huntsville. We'll see what they can do in the next round. If they can keep this going. By the way, Brian Schwacke was in goal for them. Chris Applewhite started as center back. So there's enough NSC interest to kind of keep you going there, and we have some good coverage at 615soccer.com. But also the game on Sunday night was available on YouTube for free, and whatever one is not available on YouTube will be available on MLS Season Pass. So this is the business end of the season. Obviously, it's the playoffs, so tune in. It's a good team. It plays very nice soccer. Plays very similar way to Nashville SC, even if the formation is a little different. And you might be seeing the next Nashville SC star on there. So it's a pretty cool event, all things considered.
Yeah, and just to give a rundown of the Eastern Conference, the top seeds did win except for Huntsville beating Chattanooga, and then the sixth seed Chicago beating New England. Elsewhere, you had Philly win 2-1. They were the overall number one, which is to be expected with Philly, honestly, with their the way that they approach their developmental. They beat Cincy 2-1. And then New York Red Bulls, also kind of known for their developmental side, beat Carolina Core 5-1. So you have to imagine that the uh, the conference semifinal match will not be Chicago playing at Huntsville, but who knows? Maybe they really want Philly, New York, and want each other. But anyway, the playoffs aren't necessarily the most important thing to see in a developmental side, but you like to establish a tradition of winning, and uh, I don't think that it's shocking that two of the teams in MLS that are known for their developmental sides are the top two seeds in the MLS Next Pro playoffs, and
Ye
on the Eastern Conference side at least.
Yeah, and what do you see is that often these teams that do really well in Next Pro, maybe the team in itself doesn't do well the next year or the following year, but there will be one or two players that always kind of stand out. I'm thinking of those Columbus teams. I'm looking at it right now. In 2022, they won the whole thing, and then 2023 they were runners up, and it produced two or three good quality players, good quality MLS players. So that was really, really good. You look at the Charlotte team; they're not called Charlotte. Crown Legacy. Somebody like Patrick Ajumon, for example, came out of there and played there a few matches. So even if the team itself doesn't continue this sort of trend, winning helps create those players and helps create more moments for players to showcase what they have. So it's a good thing, no matter what.
Yes. Now, moving on to the more important playoffs as far as Pharma Soccer is concerned, that's the MLS playoffs. We kind of talked a little bit about what we expect to see out of Nashville this week as things get started. But first off, Blair, you are an opinionated sort when it comes to uh, playoff structures.
Often
What do you think about the idea of Nashville playing Miami four consecutive times, which is something that could happen?
it's freaking ludicrous, and I wanted to say something else. uh, it's abysmal. It is honestly. I know we're 3 years in, and for all 3 years, I'm still gonna complain about it. I was, I talked about being in San Diego, and I was with some friends and family, mostly family members. And I fight the good fight. I fight the good MLS fight of trying to. They have a team in San Diego now, so I'm trying to convince them that they can see some good things. And some people were into it, some people were not into it. But man, trying to explain to them, first of all, trying to explain playoffs to somebody who's only watched European soccer or worldwide soccer is a crazy concept. Just the playoffs concept in its own. I know it happens in Denmark and it happens in Russia or whatever, but in general, if you
Mexico.
watch the top five leagues and you watch a couple other leagues around the world, you're not going to see playoffs. So that in itself is an explanation. However, everybody has seen a tournament. Everybody knows what a tournament is, and everybody knows what single elimination or a two-leg tournament looks like. A three-game series, nobody freaking knows what that means. No one knows what that means. I have to explain it. Oh, and they're like, oh, so you go off goal difference. No, you go off penalties. That could happen in the first game. How does that make sense? Trying to manufacture this sort of excitement, manufacture everything, just like Leagues Cup, manufactured. It just doesn't work. And if it works the first season, second season doesn't work, third season doesn't work. I I am appalled that MLS claims to be wanting to be as good of a league as aspire to be as good of a league as some of these leagues and have a 3 game series. The playoffs, I have no issue with it. There's never going to be an American sport without playoffs. That's probably a fact that we will have to live with. It is what it is. It creates excitement, gives opportunities for teams who didn't finish as high to do something. Okay, cool. I accepted. We move on. 3 game series, dumbest idea ever. Please remove it from my league. That's what I would say.
All I'm saying is that if you're going to do something as weirdly against the grain of international soccer, bring back the NASL and early MLS shootouts.
Yeah,
Those are
yeah.
way more fun than playing three games, and they're just as traditional as playing three games.
And look, I know this would eliminate a home playoff game for a lot of these teams, including Nashville. I know that. But Nashville didn't play good enough and didn't finish high enough to have a home playoffs game. So it is what it is. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
If you want to make the regular season more worth it, then you don't just gift intercontinental play and home playoff matches. You don't just gift those out to whoever.
Well, I mean, I understand the idea. It's not just having a home game for everyone, it's making sure that the teams advancing are like the better team. I just don't know that that is what happens in a 3-game series,
Atlanta was
as
not
much as
better
it
than
happens
Miami
in a
last year.
1-game series.
Yeah,
And so, like, the thing for me is I actually quite like the two-legged ties.
yeah.
I actually enjoy that, and it'll take just as long. Um, but I understand why they got rid of them. But if you're going to get rid of them, you don't add another game to only one round. Like that's the part that's crazy to me.
Right.
Is your least important round is the round that has the most games. Like it's it's
And
so
like
goofy.
it also diminishes some of these. I don't know. It doesn't diminish the rivalries, but it just make it a little less exciting. Columbus is
It's
playing.
why it's hard to.
Yeah, Cincinnati's hosting Columbus in the first game, and I think this was the series 2 years ago as well. No, actually, they met in the semifinal. I think a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
but like this is a big moment. Having a derby, having this Ohio thing going on between these two teams, and you can't convince me that 3 games is more exciting than 1 game winner advances. I just can't. I don't see how this is more exciting. It is more money because more fans are going to show up and another spot for Apple TV. But again, another decision made for non-sporting reasons. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's why people don't get excited about Barcelona and Real Madrid anymore.
mhm.
Because they watch them play 4 times during the season, then they watch them play 2 or 3 times during the summer, and it's like, at a certain point, there's diminishing returns, and they don't feel special anymore, and yeah, it's very stupid. Is there anything out there you just talked about, of course, the hell is real, but, like, is there any playoff series out there that you're looking at that you're excited about? I know one thing that I'm excited about is actually the play-in on the Eastern Conference.
Mhm.
I think that that's really interesting, and I think that both of those teams could be a real aren't going to be the easiest to eliminate, if you catch them on the right day.
I think I think that that's a good one just simply because the fact that Orlando fell from 7th to ninth, which is a huge falling down on decision day. I think I'm excited for Minnesota Seattle in the West. I think Seattle's gonna pull through that one, even though they're technically the underdog. I think the rest of the West, unless I am you know, me and others are completely wrong. It's pretty clear who's going to advance to the semifinals from those. Like San Diego, I don't see them losing to Portland or RSL. I don't see LAFC losing to Austin. I know they beat them twice in the regular season, but LAFC is just going to walk through Austin. And Vancouver, sorry Dallas, it's just not going to happen. That's famous last words, I know, but it's just not going to happen.
Tell us more about how much you love LAFC right now, Blair.
I do not love them. They are good. I do not love them. Dennis Bouanga is a great player, though. I'll tell you this. Dennis Bouanga is an absolute beast of a player
Do they
and
have
has
any other great players?
no, never heard of anybody else. Tim Tillman, that's my other favorite player from LAFC. Uh, but
Uh,
no. I mean, I think it's going to be exciting. It's the playoffs anyway. Even if it's this stupid round of 3 games or whatever, there's going to be some high moments. I hate that there's a international break in between, but MLS just can't seem to figure out how to do that without that in between. Look, it's the MLS playoffs. It's any playoffs. It's going to be exciting. So I'm looking forward to all of it.
this isn't really playoff related, but I do want to mention it. Well, it's sort of playoff related. Obviously, the Western Conference is JV soccer in terms of MLS, and the ninth seed in the Western Conference finished a whole 12 points off of the ninth seed in the East, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And I did you see the clip of Chris Armas? that
Yeah,
was doing the
yeah,
rounds.
terrible. Yeah.
Chris Armas has a go at Burgundy Wave, which is essentially the Colorado Rapids version of 615 Soccer out there. They've been around for a long time,
Also, the only
and
people covering the Colorado Rapids,
I
likely.
was getting to that. And the Colorado Rapids are not particularly close to Denver, and they aren't particularly easy to cover. They don't spend money, which Valair knows a little bit. It's something about that owner and the way that they like to spend money, specifically. And Armis was just having a go about them not being positive enough after after they missed out essentially on tiebreakers of making the playoffs to finish 11th in the West. And I found it so interesting because it's like in the East, like you wouldn't have played until the last day of the season.
Yeah.
Like you are not a good team. Like if you're at the bottom of the playoffs in the West, you're not a good team in MLS this year. And so the idea that someone would have to be positive about that was just something that was like weird to me.
Yeah, and I think, I think it's a growing thing. Covering the game, we've talked about it a lot, and not to make this about myself or 615 Soccer or Pharma Soccer or any of that, but covering the game and covering MLS is very hard. And Laurel, can't remember her last name now for some reason, out in Cincinnati, she wrote a great article about it, about, it was an open letter pretty much to MLS front offices to allow.
And that was before this
That
happened.
was before. Yeah, yeah. This was before. This was just
Yeah.
as a FYI, as a just, hey, this
Yeah.
is how we feel type of thing. And you know, I think any MLS team that has people showing up to games and press conferences asking questions should be thankful for them. In all honesty, because I've seen a change. I've talked about this Nashville SC thing. Things are different now in Nashville SC media wise than they were beforehand. I have seen now local channels being interested in Nashville SC, the Tennessean, all these sort of legacy channels. That doesn't happen in a lot of these markets, like New York or Los Angeles, or even somebody like Colorado. So the fact that there are people there that are trying to cover this team, I think it's a really important thing. And a coach being upset because his team who finished 11th was questioned, um you know come on, man. Like, this is clearly something else. This is clearly you being told you're probably not going to make it to next year. And this is not the first time Chris Armas has done that. Caleb Porter has done this every time he's been in MLS. It's just ridiculous. I don't know if these coaches understand how much it takes and how most people covering soccer in America aren't getting paid to cover soccer in America. So, and it wasn't a disrespectful question. It was not a question
No.
where it sort of made it feel disrespectful, or there was anything charged in it. It was a clear question about, do you think you're going to stay here in Colorado with these results?
Well, and I don't really think it matters if it was a disrespectful question either. Like that's the job. I mean, that's the role. And
Yeah.
I mean, look, the probably the most vocal person who covers the Titans day to day in Nashville, two of the most vocal people really are Jared Stillman and Buck Rising, two people not exactly known for being having kid gloves when it comes to talking about the Tennessee Titans. Very opinionated, very out there, talking very specifically about people's jobs, which can be grating and can
You said
certainly
Jared
feel
Stillman and who?
Buck Rising.
Oh, Buck Rising, the one the tied for third best reporter in the Nashville scene with me. Yeah,
But
that's right. No, also I was gonna
yeah,
say you missed the most notable one, which is Paul Kaharski, who has
well,
made a
yeah,
living out
of
of out
course,
of out of questioning the Titans. Which,
right,
again, your point
yeah,
stands. Yeah,
yeah. I hope you caught the joke of us making fun of you for finishing third because it was the most Arsenal thing you could have done.
hey. It was fourth. It was fourth in the back a few years back. Then it was third, and now it's second. We're moving up in the world. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. And anyway, going back to the point is like it doesn't really matter if it's like it's not their job to be disrespectful or to be most deferent to like the team or the coach or anything like that. And it's the one part of this league that has never really gotten out of its infancy. And I think that we see these stories happen all over the place. But the more important thing is, if you don't make the playoffs in every league in the world, if you don't live up to the bare minimum of expectations, which in MLS is making the playoffs, um, in every sport, in every league in the world, people are going to ask you tough questions about that. Like that's the baseline. And if you don't meet the baseline, then you know you leave yourself open for things to happen. So moving on from that, playoffs in the West uh, seems seems pretty top heavy. The East, absolute buzzsaw. I think the most the most interesting thing I think that I've seen the last day or so is that Matt Doyle still listed Nashville among his I won't be surprised if this team wins MLS Cup. And I think that that is the most positive way. Like, I meant to say this in the last segment, but if you're a Nashville fan, I think that that is a pretty have in your back pocket if you're feeling kind of negative about things, is that Nashville, you look at where they are on the table and maybe you feel a little bit uncomfortable with that. Lower seeded teams, they they don't usually win MLS Cup, but it has happened. And one of the most prominent writers in the league, nationally, still backs Nashville's chances, specifically because they have two match winners and a good defense.
Yeah, it's the playoffs again. So it could happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I am less optimistic after that decision day. Let's just say that.
Yes, I think I would agree on that. I think everyone is viewing it as Miami's to win,
Yeah.
and I think that if Nashville finds a way to get a couple results, or Miami's or LAFC's, I think those would be the two favorites. Would you agree on that?
I think
Um,
Vancouver.
but Nash,
I think Vancouver's in there.
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
fair. Vancouver's gone quiet, nationally, but they're still very, very good.
they're incredibly good, and they have Thomas Muller, who's enjoying every minute he's having in MLS. So yeah, I would put those three above everybody else. Even Philadelphia winning the Supporter Shield, I think those three have a better chance. In all honesty.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. With that being said, this is we will have multiple playoff shows still because the stupid format.
Yeah.
So, what is your prediction for the first playoff game for Nashville? And if you have anything you'd like to plug.
I would like you to follow Valair Shabilla on social media, but most importantly, subscribe to Valair Shabilla on YouTube, because that's where you will get the episode of On Air with Valair with Taylor Washington. And we would love for you to watch that and share that and clip that and send it to all your friends and family and everybody else. I want this episode to be the highest viewed episode of the show. So go and make that happen, please. For my prediction, this is not going to make you happy if you're listening to this, but I think Miami's going to win 3-1 in Miami. I think Nashville gets a goal. I think it's going to play very similarly to the Champions Cup game in Miami a couple of years back, sorry, where I believe Nashville lost 3-1 as well, but Nashville played, pretty well overall. So I think it's going to be similar to that. I think it's just too much of an ask to tell them to go to Miami and beat Miami currently, even though Chicago did it just a few weeks back. So, but I don't see it happening.
And Chicago scored 5 goals in that game.
Yeah.
the
Vancouver did it earlier in the season too.
So I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic, just so that you're coming out of here feeling a little bit optimistic. Although in my gut, I do feel a little bit worried about that result in Miami. Uh, you can follow me at Clay Lassol on Twitter and Instagram. You can check out Nashville Soccer Archive. If you have anything you'd like to donate to the archive, please let me know. We do have a physical archive at Vanderbilt. We are always wanting to add more stuff to it. So if you have anything of significance, or even you're not sure if it's of significance, please let me know and I will talk to you about it. Um, Now for prediction. All right. All right. I'm talking myself into positivity here. I think I'm gonna go with a 2-2 draw. I think that Nashville gets a lead. I think that Miami starts pressing, scores right at the end, and to send it to penalties. And then Nashville wins on penalties.
Okay, okay, hold on,
And
hold on.
then has to play a game in Nashville.
Does Schwalke get subbed in for the penalties?
No.
I think he should be.
I don't know that there would be I don't know that he would be able to be.
Why is that?
Well, because you'd have to use a sub.
Oh, okay, okay, I see.
Because Miami's scoring late. So
Mm.
in my head, Miami is scoring late to send it to
Josh
penalties.
Bauer's already on the pitch. It's too late for Schwalke.
Yeah,
Josh
and
Bauer and Till
hopefully
Bomber.
Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surge haven't been subbed off.
Hey, Till Bomber scoring the winning penalty sounds pretty good too. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll take
yeah.
it.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure how I'm starting to feel about that trend of bringing Mukhtar and Surge off in 1 goal games.
Mm, yeah.
This is a completely different. This is a conversation for a different day, but I do worry that that's going to bite Nashville at some point.
Hey,
So,
go
anyway,
give us 5 stars and thank you for listening.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not the most positive note to end on. So, I hope we see Nashville get. Valair's not allowed to say he hopes it, but we all know he does. We hope to see Nashville get a win down in Miami, and we will be back to talk about it next week. Thanks for listening, y'all.